is interest-free. Conditions apply. The time by Sagicor Bank is...
It's 7 o'clock. It's now time for the Morning Watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and the YouTube Live. In the first watch today, COVID-19, 2 years and counting, evaluations and projections. In the second watch, what does Russia have to do with the Bible and end time prophecy? Our social media question we ask: how would you describe or evaluate the past 2 years in relation to COVID-19? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
Every day there are 1,440 minutes. That means we have 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. Les Brown, that was I quote.
Okay, good morning, Roshane.
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint. Trust you are well.
I am well, and how are you, my brother?
Well, I'm just taking it one day at a time, or should I say 1 minute at a time, because 1,440 minutes in a day.
I tell you. You went to, well, in terms of your church, you go to, is it Sunday school that you went to, or have you been going to?
Well, I grew up in the Saturday setting. I used to go to Sabbath school, they usually call it, back in the day. Yes. And of course, coming to Sunday church, I go to Sunday school.
Right.
I'm not the one. I'm not going to say I'm the one that goes to Sunday school. That's not really. Maybe at some point I will be teaching Sunday school, but at the moment I'm not currently going to a Sunday school at the moment.
Yeah, I asked because of this, the devotion. Watch your eyes, watch your... You used to sing that? Watch your eyes, watch your see. And...
It's funny enough, it's because of time I didn't search for that song on the system to see if I could play it for the listeners.
Not too late, all right? All right. The first watch will be back after this break.
Suzuki, I give you deals on deals. I any Suzuki where you like any type and get a lot of value with your brand new wheels. I just deals on top of deals on top of deals. Suzuki, I give you deals on deals. So here's the deal. From now until April 8th, buy a Vitara, Baleno, Carry Pickup, XL7 or any other Suzuki and get 5 years warranty, 2 years free servicing, 1 year of free insurance and gas, or $200,000 cash back plus more. No, that's a deal. Follow Suzuki Jamaica for more details. Conditions apply. Suzuki, I give you deals on deals.
Digicel, connect with Brata, Data Kia. Enjoy all your favorite apps and more on Jamaica's fastest network. Activate the Prime Brata bundle for as low as $175 by dialing *147 number sign from your Digicel phone or in the My Digicel app. All right, connect with Brata, Digicel Prime Brata, Data Kia.
Do you have a heart condition? Your care should be in the hands of our experienced cardiovascular team at Partners Interventional Center of Jamaica. We're one of the leading heart centers for angiograms, stenting, pacemakers, EP studies, and ablation therapy. PICJ has the expertise and latest technology to treat all your heart needs. Call 876-995-7425 or email info@pic-jm.com for appointments. PICJ, your partners for life.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
The El Ratri Evangelistic Association, in partnership with the Ministers Fraternal in St. Catherine, is hosting its St. Catherine Virtual Crusade, Sunday, March 20 through to Sunday, March 27, 7:30 to 9 o'clock each evening, under the theme Choose Christ in the Crisis, with speakers Reverend Dr. Peter Garth, Bishop Delford Davis, Bishop Rowan Edwards, and Reverend Dexter Johnson. Listen for the Youth Rally, Friday, March 25 at 7:30 p.m. The Children's Rally is on Saturday, March 26 from 12:30 to 1 p.m.
Listen for Through the Bible with Love, brought to you by the Open Bible Standard Churches of Jamaica at 6:50 p.m. Monday to Wednesday, and Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef at 7 p.m. Then on a Thursday, March 24 to Sunday, March 27, listen for Through the Bible with Love at 7:15 p.m.
Catch the broadcast on Love 101 Facebook page and right here on the family station, Love 101.
Keep on pushing, heart stay clean, so I keep on.
What does a healthy conversation look like? Can we avoid over-communicating? And how can one improve their romantic relationship through communication? You get to find out this and more this Thursday, March 17 at 5:30 p.m. inside the truly marvelous program To Have and to Hold, as we take a look at constructive and destructive communications in our marriage. That's the truly marvelous program this and every Thursday with host Colleen Beckles and her co-host for this week, Andre Allen Casey. And it happens right here on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, this month marks the second anniversary of COVID-19's entry into Jamaica. And most people, it seems, had a difficult time financially, emotionally, socially, etc. Some reportedly weathered it well, maybe even doing better under COVID than before. However, how would or should we evaluate it on a national scale? How would you evaluate the last 2 years living with this virus? And what may the next year look like? To address these and other related issues, we have online Ms. Nadine Spence, social commentator, Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, CEO and editor-in-chief of the Western Mirror, and a social commentator. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Is Nadine with us? Ms. Spence? All right. We're not hearing Ms. Spence. You still with us, Mr. Smith?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Good to have you with us. We hope that Ms. Spence will join us soon. Well, before we sectionalize our discussion, generally, how would you say we fared over the past 2 years as a nation within a pandemic?
Well, we had peaks and troughs. There were times when it would have appeared that we were coming out of the woods, and then we had the second spike and so on. Overall, I think as a small developing country, we did reasonably well. I think the elephant in the room is the fact that we have not been able to vaccinate sufficient persons. I think we are still in the 20 to 30% region, which is not very good at all. But at the same time, the reality is that it would appear, in my estimation, and this needs some more scientific analysis. The Jamaican people seem to be very sturdy,
resilient.
Yes, notwithstanding the fact that we haven't had an overwhelming number of persons vaccinated. The reality is that overall the population has survived. And this is something worth looking into. I think, from, as I said, a scientific perspective, is there something out there that we are not fully aware of? Of course, we could be playing with fire, so to speak, because we are being told that there are other variants on the horizon, and it could be that another variant could be even more lethal than the Omicron or anyone before it, the Delta, and so on. So it seems to me that we still have to be very careful. But overall, I think we have managed well. The fact that the economy has not totally tanked out again points to some amount of effective management by the government, although I do believe that there has been a tremendous amount of failure in the education sector, because we still cannot account for a large number of students who have fallen out of the system, and we still are not, I think, sufficiently dealing with the whole matter of how we take on the issue of depression and isolation and so on in the family situation.
Yeah. All right. I gather that Miss Spence is on. Good morning, Miss Spence. You are muted. Good morning, Miss Spence.
Good morning.
Yes, good to have you with us.
Okay, thanks for having
Yes,
me.
before we sectionalize our evaluation, I was just asking generally, how would you say that we fared over the past 2 years within a pandemic?
I think we've done pretty well. I think when the pandemic started, one of the things that we learned, that based on the epidemiological modeling, a lot more people, it was anticipated that more people would die from the pandemic. And if you look at our death rate, even as we regret that so many of our Jamaicans lost lives, we did way below. Way below. A lot less people died than anticipated. That's what. The management of it wasn't too bad. There are areas where there could have been a lot more improvement. Especially when it came on to the vaccine part of it, I think there was this kind of hope, perhaps, that people would have rushed to be vaccinated, and that didn't happen. And so I think that part of it was handled too. And I think the part of keeping children online and in school was also a big issue, because we stayed out of school too long, I think, with our kids. So I think perhaps not stayed out of school too long. I think the measures put in place to keep them connected on online insufficient for the most part, especially for those kids who live in rural Jamaica, and for whom connectivity was a huge challenge. And I think we still have not we haven't sought to hold responsible telecommunications industry, and haven't yet asked, why things did not improve even for so long a time.
Okay.
But I think it overall management was not as bad as it have been.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We are up on a break. We'll be right back.
Chunky, spicy, and delicious. Lasco mackerel. Get hooked on the tastiest mackerel around. The time by Lasco mackerel is
7:15 right here on the family station, Love 101.
Me need some information about my NWC bill now.
Want to know how much water you used?
Yes, I want to know my usage up to at least 6 months.
Just log on to the NWC's customer web access portal at nwcjamaica.com and you can get account information up to 13 months. You can also get your payment history.
So I can access the IPA section for pay my bill too?
Yes, it's convenient. Click and connect with the NWC customer web access portal. Try it now.
Do you operate a business in the manufacturing or agro-processing industry? Sagicor Bank has a loan just for you. Sagicor Bank Manufacturing and Agro-Processing Loan. Borrow up to $50 million with up to 12 years to repay. Financing you can use to retool, expand, improve efficiencies, or gear up for export. Speak with a business banker today. Sagicor Bank Manufacturing and Agro-Processing Loan. Just another way Sagicor Bank is taking care of business. Conditions apply.
At Kalalutu any party where you get? Kalapati, kalapati. At Kalalutu any party where you get? Kalapati, kalapati.
Juicy patty, them sweet, them nice.
That's true.
Yeah, we at the right price. One patty no better, you buy two.
They mix the party with the nice Kalalu.
New combo alert! Add Kalalu to any party.
Kalapati, kalapati.
And if you want, add some cheese.
At all Juicy patty locations, island wide.
Conditions apply. Kalapati, kalapati.
Blue side, more vibe, let's flow. Data from the mobile apps and where you know, yeah. Flow is the way you gotta go, yeah. Face it, grab it, beat it, snap it. You will go WhatsApp it. You got it? No Spotify, yeah, the rhythm of your life. TikTok to the world that we are enjoying. Flow is the way to go.
So, turns up the app. Now you're on limited talk and social plan. Come to Data for all the apps you really want, including TikTok and Spotify. Get a 7-day plan for only $725. Dial *129*6 to activate. Conditions apply.
Ooh la la, I see what I want at the Phosphorus Super Sale, March 21 to 31, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Come get your wires, breakers, chandeliers, wall lamps, LED bulbs, and so much more. Shop in Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. You can't afford to miss it. Come shop, come save at Phosphorus Super Sale, March 21 to 31. See you there at Phosphorus.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the first watch, we are discussing COVID-19 2 years and counting as we seek to evaluate and to make projections if possible. And we have online Ms. Nadine Spence and Mr. Lloyd B. Smith. Welcome back to both of you. Mr. Smith, as we now drill down in our evaluation, what's your take in terms of the messaging over these 2 years?
Well, the messaging, I think, has not been sufficiently penetrative. I think too much of it has been more of public relations rather than what I would call effective communication. You know, there's been a lot of razzmatazz and we have seen a lot of, you know, advertisements and so on. But we have to face reality. For example, it is my view that Jamaica is still very largely an oral society. In other words, people don't read. People don't absorb content that is written. And so I think those persons who are dealing with the messaging needs to revisit their methodologies and to see how they can in fact reach especially those persons in the lower socioeconomic bracket who are in a survival mode and who are easily distracted by various rumors and folklore and so on, which do not stand up to scientific evidence. You know, I think this is where the messaging has been lacking. Also, I think to some extent the government has been too much in the forefront, and we know of a fact that there's a tremendous amount of distrust among the people when it comes to politicians. I've been one myself, so I'm fully aware of that. You know, and I think whoever, we need to look at who is the messenger or who are the messengers.
What would have been the alternative in that regard, Mr. Smith, if not the government, to do that messaging that you're talking about?
Well, we have, is it me you're asking? Or
yes.
We have community leaders. We have persons out there, even to some extent, the entertainers, for example, they have been used to some extent, but more on the frills. We have pastors, we have, like yourself, we have so many community persons out there that, you know, you could zero in on and get them to be part of the messaging process rather than this top-down approach. Because most of the time it is the Minister of Health or the Prime Minister that, you know, are purveying most of the messages. And
interesting.
I don't know if they are being listened to that much.
Interesting. Ms. Spence, your take on that? Messaging.
I think what the government and perhaps what the health authorities never anticipated was that there would be so much resistance and that the anti-campaign, the COVID is not real, propaganda would have been as intense as it was. And I think it was happening at a time when the right in the US, the extreme people on the extreme right, were really resisting. And there was such a the divides were so intense that the spin-off in places like Jamaica, which has this unfettered access to the internet, was huge. And I don't think the government or the health authorities anticipated it or had a response when it came to be. The other thing that I found as well is that, to be honest, in Jamaica, radio stations are more geared towards debate and not dissemination of information. So when you heard information about COVID-19 from most of the time on the radio stations which Jamaicans love to listen to, it was mostly framed in the context of a debate and not so much with the pure dissemination of information. So if there was one weakness I found with the government engagement of the public, is that it started to try to dispel the rumors, the myths, and the misinformation way too late. And it perhaps didn't recognize that the underground, the messaging that was happening on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Twitter, that messaging was as intense and as continuous as it was. And to this date, there hasn't been a response to that.
There's I'm sorry, Ms. Spence, but there's a school of thought out there that no matter what was done, no matter how often, right, Jamaicans were just turned off from this thing in the main. How you respond to that?
Yeah, but it's true. You know, I don't necessarily believe that. I think that it's true that there was a lot of misinformation. I think to this day, you should know this, Reverend, that there are significant elements within the church who interpret the entire situation in a very different way. Yes. And so, how do you develop messaging to counter that kind of information? So that misinformation. So that is very true, and that there are organized international groups and organizations.
Anti-vaxxers, yes.
that were deliberately developed to counter a messaging, to counter any messaging that any government or health authorities would have put out. So that's true. And so that's why I believe that, you know, if the authorities needed to know of it, for them to have gotten any way with it, they needed to know about it from early. But it also tells you that Jamaica is a very open society. Any kind of information gets here and lives without even the authorities knowing that this is here and that people are being impacted in this way. So it's a whole lot of information that came in and that was passed around person to person, WhatsApp talk to WhatsApp group. And because people were so already organized around social media, around receiving information through social media, around engaging on social media, it was easy to tap into those information sources and channels. So there was a huge, and still continues to be a huge, misinformation organization that is hell-bent on undermining government's capacity to intervene, or the health authorities' capacity to intervene in the management of COVID-19.
What about, still with you, Ms. Spence, what about the manpower and woman power? I'm talking about those on the front line. How did they respond to this crisis initially and over time, would you say? The security forces, health professionals.
I think initially our responses were admirable. I think if you remember, when we started, Jamaica was proactive. We were responding in a way that suggests that we wanted to stay ahead of the movement of the disease and the pandemic. We were doing well, and I think the health authorities tried to stay on top of it. Although, you know, there were some very public cases of them panicking as well and not responding as appropriately as we would have expected in terms of those who were on the ground, and the kind of discrimination that would have seen, for example, the death of Jody and Ferron, and being confused about it as well. But I think as we settled down and got a handle on it, we did much better. We improved, and our ratings locally, regionally, and internationally indicated that Jamaica was one of those countries that was really moving with the passage of the pandemic. I think what happened was, after a while, as people became inundated with the lack of resources, the amount of cases when we had the waves, and just the kind of cavalier attitude that some sections of the population had towards the disease, I think the health authorities again became overwhelmed, and the practitioners became overwhelmed with the amount of cases that they received. So I think that there's no one way to assess this pandemic. You have to look at it at a particular time, what was happening. It's almost like a living, breathing thing. And how we responded at a particular time, depending on the challenges it presented. And there were points that we did well, and there were points that we didn't do so well.
Right. Mr. Smith, you seem as if you're going to have the last word. Don't know if you want to say anything in terms of those on the front line, but in terms of the future. Like, for example, today we're expecting the Prime Minister in his budget debate speech to say something about the loosening of the restrictions. What are you expecting? What are you hoping him to say?
The Prime Minister, the government, as an entity, they have been under a lot of pressure, especially from the entertainment and sporting sector. And I suspect that they are going to be easing up on those sectors, which are very critical to the economy. But my warning to the Prime Minister would be to tread carefully. We see what is now happening in China, for example, and you know, as a global community, viruses spread very fast, in one way or another. So I think whilst there should be more easing up, at the same time, it should be done with some amount of caution and not to, shall we say, totally fly the gate. Some amount of restraint, because you know, we are not yet out of the woods. COVID is a reality, and it's still very much here. But before you go quickly, one of the areas, too, that I would love to see being discussed is the role of alternative, what we sometimes call in Jamaica, bush medicine. Because I found that a lot of Jamaicans, the church don't take no vaccine because they might get them moringa and them this and them that and them mix up that. And is it working? I would love to see some
maybe
done in that area, you know?
Maybe the infection rate is baffling.
Yes.
For the persons who have been unvaccinated. Anyway, thank you so very much for joining us, Mr. Smith and Miss Spence. Have a productive day.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Now with no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:30 right here on the family station, Love 101. We have an announcement from CCRP Awareness. If you are 50 and over, a CCRP membership has many benefits. CCRP offers you great health plans through Gallagher Insurance Brokers and Sagicor, affordable home and auto insurance through JNGI Silver Shield, as well as a world of fun experiences and discounts from your favorite service providers and retailers. Also, we do outreach and advocate for the elderly. Visit ccrponline.org or any of our offices in Kingston, Montego Bay, Mandeville, and Ocho Rios. Join CCRP today and live life to the fullest.
Talk and stream all day when you activate any Prime Brata bundle for as low as $175. Enjoy local minutes to stay in touch with friends and family on the go or your yard. Yeah, you dial *147 number sign from your Digicel phone or activate in the My Digicel app. Digicel, made in Jamaica.
Hey, my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status, if you consider the least of a test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late, so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory, real long life, our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Real long life, our story. Real long life for youth, coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Power in great moments. If you have financial needs, Mr. Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think alone, think Chris and Charles.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. We're not seeing any updates in terms of the news headlines at this moment, but coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. How would you describe or evaluate the past 2 years in relation to COVID-19? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and the YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
The Errol Rattree Evangelistic Association, in partnership with the Ministers Fraternal in St. Catherine, is hosting its St. Catherine Virtual Crusade, Sunday, March 20 through to Sunday, March 27, 7:30 to 9 o'clock each evening, under the theme, Choose Christ in the Crisis with speakers Reverend Dr. Peter Garth, Bishop Delford Davis, Bishop Rowan Edwards, and Reverend Dexter Johnson. Listen for the Youth Rally Friday, March 25 at 7:30 p.m. The Children's Rally is on Saturday, March 26 from 12:30 to 1 p.m.
Listen for Through the Bible with Love, brought to you by the Open Bible Standard Churches of Jamaica at 6:50 p.m. Monday to Wednesday, and Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef at 7 p.m. Then on Thursday, March 24 to Sunday, March 27, listen for Through the Bible with Love at 7:15 p.m.
Catch the broadcast on Love 101 Facebook page and right here on the family station, Love 101.
I'm pushing, heart stay clean, so I keep on.
Tune in this Thursday, March 17, 2022, from 2:15 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. as Prime Minister Andrew Holness makes his contribution to the 2022-2023 budget debate under the theme Building or Jamaica, Sowing Seeds for a Future of Peace, Opportunity and Prosperity. That's Prime Minister Andrew Holness's contribution to the 2022-2023 budget debate this Thursday, March 17, 2022, from 2:15 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. live right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's join Roshane for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answer today's question: how would you describe or evaluate the past 2 years in relation to COVID-19? Roshane.
Well, thank you, Dr. Toussaint. I'm looking through. There was no comment, but there was a listener who asked a question concerning the discussion earlier. Let me just pose that question at this time.
Listening to the discussion, and I find it interesting. Would love to ask, which source really is the misinformation? Government, WhatsApp, or who?
All right, so that was the comment there from a listener. So I guess we can follow up on that one.
Yes, you have to follow up on that one. An interesting question there. Thank you very much to the responder. Thank you, Roshane. All right, as we segue into the second watch, the recent Russian invasion of Ukraine has raised discussions about geopolitics, humanitarian crises, as well as biblical and end-time prophecy issues. Indeed, a well-known U.S. televangelist recently expressed the view, and I quote, "God has directed Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine, to use the country as a staging ground to launch an attack on Israel and bring about the end times." Ezekiel 38 and 39 contain everything people need to know about what will soon happen. End of quote. So, is in this the second watch we are asking, how does the Russian invasion of Ukraine line up with end time prophecy? Are we witnessing the end of the world? Well, to discuss these and other related issues, we have joining us this morning Apostle Mary Wildish, founder and senior pastor of Trumpet Call Ministries International, and the Reverend Barry Hall, head of Department, Biblical and Theological Studies, Jamaica Theological Seminary. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing, Rev?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good, good. Apostle Wildish, welcome. You are muted. How are you this morning, Apostle? We're not hearing you. For some reason, I'm not hearing. I'm seeing you, but not hearing you. All right. We have to work on your volume there, your audio, Apostle. All right. Are you still with us, Reverend Hall?
Yes, I'm here.
Good, good. All right. We're working with Apostle Wildish until that is fixed. Before we delve into the meat of our discussion, what are your opening thoughts, Reverend Hall, on the war between Russia and Ukraine?
we have to be careful how we approach current events and try to make it a part of biblical prophetic end time results. The thing is that we have to be careful that we're not trying to create doctrine without proper scriptural support. Many aspects of prophecy in the Bible can only be understood in a partial manner. There are great themes of prophecy, but we have to be careful that we are not building that an isolated text. So I remember when we had the Kuwait invasion, that many books came out and many prophecies that this is end time and this is what the Bible spoke about. Clearly, it was not so. Though it might still be setting the stage for what is to come, but we have to be careful that we don't tag things and say, this is it. This is it. Because it is as it is revealed that it proves itself in a lot of ways. So I would not be one to jump on this bandwagon to say, oh, this is what the Bible spoke about right here. So it's too early, and there's not sufficient evidence to say that it's so.
Okay. All right. Apostle Wildish, you're back with us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Can you hear
Great.
me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
I'm just asking your opening thoughts on the war between Russia and Ukraine. Before we delve into the meat of our discussion, what are your opening thoughts?
Yes, my opening thoughts are when you look in biblical prophecy, and especially like between Ezekiel 36 to 38, you see that Russia is going to join with certain allies and they're going to attack Israel. So my opening thoughts are very similar to Reverend Hall, that I think it's too early to tell if this is what is prophesied about the war of Gog and Magog. We have to watch it, but I would not draw that conclusion at this point that this would be what Ezekiel prophesied about in Ezekiel 37 and 38.
Right. So you mentioned about Gog and Magog, Apostle Wildish. What's that about in the two passages mentioned? Ezekiel 38 and 39? Or you mentioned 37?
No, it's right, 38 and 39.
Right.
So fundamentally, I like to try and really simplify things, because when it comes to end time prophecy, it gets so complex. And actually, in the book of Ezekiel, rabbis are told not to study Ezekiel, so they've studied all of the other scriptures. But fundamentally, we look at Gog and Magog as Russia, that which is north of Jerusalem. And we see that Russia is north of Jerusalem. And so Gog and Magog is a war which, with biblical interpretation of prophecy, it unfolds, and Revelation continues to come as history unfolds. But it's where Russia joins with certain allies, and we would say potentially allies like Iran, maybe China, to come against Israel. So really, this war is Russia coming against the Ukraine and possibly taking back Ukrainian territory. So we see that the allies that are prophesied about have not joined with Russia for this war. So fundamentally, Russia is at this point on its own in this war. That would be one of the reasons why I would say this would not at this point be the fulfillment of Gog and Magog.
Yeah, I'm sure Reverend Hall wants to respond, but before he does, how do you link Gog and Magog with Russia? I'm still having a difficulty making the connection.
It maybe Reverend Hall explain it better, but fundamentally, many words in scripture, like lands that were listed in scripture, had different names than they do today. So as you begin to study it and you begin to realize that the prophet was about Gog, that which is north of Jerusalem, it looks that it is potentially Russia as we know it today.
But there are other countries that are also north of Jerusalem, are there not?
yes, there are other countries that are north.
Yes. So why Russia? Why target Russia? That's why I'm having difficulty understanding.
Because, well, I don't know how I can explain that. It's just inside of biblical prophecy, we see that which is north of Jerusalem, and fundamentally that deals with the nation of Russia. And we know that Russia, right now, Russia and Israel do have certain agreements that would speak to the fact that at this point, Russia would not come up against Israel.
Okay. Reverend Hall, your take on that?
You know, that is one of the hotly disputed.
Okay. Reverend Hall, my apologies, Reverend Hall. We're up on a break. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
JN Money Card. Send the money. No one withdraw in a hurry. JN Money Card free. With your TRN and your ID. And when we not walk with cash, me just swipe like that. From abroad to card. Get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card sent from abroad. JN Money Card.
Available at JN Money locations across Jamaica. Conditions apply.
Daddy, when we're going home, I'm bored.
Oh, my daughter, you can use my brother data and watch some YouTube or something else.
Really, Daddy? I can watch my favorite show right now. But what if the data done?
You know that the data can't done on my Digicel Prime Brata bundle.
OMG, thanks, Daddy. Look, there's a new episode. Let me watch it now.
Enjoy your favorite apps anywhere you're there with data with a Digicel Prime Brata bundle. Dial star 147 number sign from your Digicel phone to activate today. Digicel, made in Jamaica.
The following is a message from the Ministry of Tourism.
Without a doubt, tourism is Jamaica's #1 industry, and our dedicated workers are its greatest asset. Jamaica would not be the heartbeat of the world without you. As the industry rebounds from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, we truly need all hands on deck, yours included. Vaccination holds the hope for tourism's full recovery. In addition to COVID-19 protocols, it is the only comprehensive way to fight the pandemic and save lives. I am therefore urging every worker in the tourism and hospitality industry, in all the subsectors, including accommodation, attraction, entertainment, transportation, and craft, to do your part and get vaccinated. Do it for yourself, your family, your workplace, and your community. Do it for Jamaica, land we love. Stay safe. Get vaccinated.
The preceding message was brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the second half of the second watch, we are asking the question, what does Russia have to do with Bible and end time prophecy? And we have online Apostle Mary Wildish and the Reverend Barry Hall as we seek to discuss this interesting issue. Reverend Hall, before the break, you were giving us your take in terms of the connection with Magog and Gog with Russia.
Right. The word Russia is not found in the English Bible. But in that prophecy, which is one of the most debated items of biblical prophecy, nearly every aspect of it is debated, including the identification of God, which is greatly debated. It is a toponym that occurs several times within the scripture, but nearly every time within in Ezekiel prophecy. He says to him in Ezekiel 38:2, set your face towards God, the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh. And this is where we start to have the consideration of Russia. Who is the prince of Rosh? Magog is a reference to the ancient Scythians who lived in the area of the north of the Black Sea, and this is the former Soviet republic that is in that area. The Rosh can either be translated as a proper noun or an adjective, and many of the translations, strong translations too, including the NIV, take it as an adjective. However, the others who take it as a proper noun find more support. So when we look at Rosh, historically and geographically, the support for it being Russia is much stronger. It is difficult to try and discuss all the proof within the time frame given. But just to say that the arguments that support it as Russia are much, much stronger than anything else. So Rosh would be ideally translated and understood as Russia. Now,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ventall. I just want to clarify. You are agreeing that Magog and Gog is in reference to Russia. Just want to get that clear. Are you in agreement?
I am agreeing that, yes, it is the prince of Rosh, and it is, yes, Russia. Most of the evidence points to that.
Yeah, I'm reading somewhere where it says that Gog really, in the Hebrew word, simply means lead or head.
Yes.
But how the connection with Russia?
Well, as I said, it's how it is interpreted, whether it is seen as a adjective or it is seen as a proper noun. In most of the use of the word, it is interpreted as a proper noun. Even in the one time where it is used outside of Ezekiel, it is used as a proper noun, and in the context, it is a person, a leader, a ruler that God has told Ezekiel to prophesy again. So it is not just against a title or a descriptive against something. It is against a person who has told him to prophesy again. And so with that interpretation and the understanding of how it is used, it is best understood in light of being a proper noun. And then when you discuss Rosh, the prince of Rosh, and how it has been translated throughout the years, it clearly points to Russia.
Okay. Apostle, while there are those who are of the view that the Antichrist will come from or be connected with Russia. What are your views in that regard?
Dr. DeSanz, I mean, there's so many views as it relates to biblical end-time prophecy, and theologians have debated throughout the centuries regarding these things. At this point, to say that the Antichrist is going to come out of Russia, that is a whole other program. I would disagree with that viewpoint. However, what I do believe is essential for us to understand at this point that while theologians might debate what is this war about, is it connected to the scriptures in Ezekiel 38 and 39, I believe that this war is directly connected to Matthew 24. And Matthew 24 tells us that in the end days that nation will rise against nation and kingdom will rise against kingdom. There will be wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, pestilence in various places. And these are the signs of the birth pang of the end. And I believe that when you see a global pandemic like COVID, when you begin to see another war emerging, such as this war as Russia and Ukraine, I think that we can begin to think about the fact that these are the signs. I believe that this war is yet another sign of the fulfillment of Matthew 24, that these are the birth pangs, that the end times are upon us, the end times are near, and it's a warning and a wake-up call to the body of Christ to preach a gospel and to let the good news of salvation be heard in our cities and in our nations, because Jesus Christ is coming back soon. So I think we can debate, where's the Antichrist coming from? I don't believe biblically we see it coming from Russia. but I think this war is a direct fulfillment of Matthew 24.
How do you respond then, Apostle Wildish, to those who say that the world has been having wars over time? Wars and pandemics have happened before. In fact, the Spanish flu, 1918, right, was in the midst of a world war as well. So what's the difference between then and now?
Well, one of the principles of biblical interpretation is called progressive prophetic fulfillment. And this is a principle of biblical interpretation which holds that a prophetic passage can have several layers of partial fulfillment over time leading up to its ultimate completion. So we cannot say at this time when we look at biblical prophecy that this is it, that this is the ultimate end. But we can say that we are closer now than we were during the Spanish flu. And as we begin to watch, and one of the key things to watch as it relates to the end is to look at Israel. What is God doing with Israel? Where are the nations surrounding Israel? Where do they stand? And this is one of the keys to discerning, is this just another progression towards the end, or is this the end of the end? And that's why I would say no, it's not quite the end of the end yet, but this is a birth time. This is progression. We're seeing things continuing to take place in the earth. We're seeing systems set up in the earth where, you know, the internet gives us global access. That wasn't happening during the Spanish flu. So we're seeing the birth times taking place, and it means that we need to draw attention. We need to have our lamps filled with oil. We need to be ready, because the second coming of Christ could be at any time.
Thank you, Reverend. Yes, Reverend Hall. As we wind down our discussion, your views on that, and any recommendations, suggestions in regards to this whole end time prophecy stuff.
Well, contextually, Matthew 24 doesn't speak to the church. Matthew 24 speaks to Israel. It is in response to the question that the disciples asked about the impending kingdom. So Matthew 24 would never be, contextually, I'd never take it to refer to the church in any which way or form. Hence, the happenings of Matthew 24 would seem to come after the church has been removed, which is what we call the rapture. And those signs then will come. Whatever leads to it, whatever are the results of the rapture, that's the signs that will follow. It is clear that there are no signs given for the rapture that from the scriptures. This is a time that we will never know, and no signs given. But there are signs given towards the coming. And so I don't believe Matthew 24 speaks to the church.
None at all.
None at all.
None at all.
No,
so the whole thing about the gospel being preached to all nations and all of those things.
Well, we're talking about the word gospel, and the word gospel is used in an adjectival sense in that it describes something. Gospel just means good news. And when we read it in the context of Matthew chapter 24, it is saying the gospel of the kingdom. Our gospel is not a gospel of the kingdom. Our gospel is the gospel of Jesus Christ and salvation that is offered.
It's not both. It's not both Jesus Christ and the kingdom.
Concerning the kingdom of Israel.
I'm sorry, Reverend Hall. It's not both the gospel of the kingdom and of Jesus Christ.
No, it's two different distinctions. There it is clear. Paul never refers to our gospel or any of the epistles refer to our gospel as a gospel of the kingdom. When you say gospel of the kingdom, it means good news concerning the kingdom. And the kingdom is the millennial kingdom, or the establishment of Israel, or return of Israel, which former glory days will rule the world. Where God says that Jesus will come and he will reign from Israel, and they will establish them. But it has nothing to do with the church.
Tell you what, we're totally. Thank you. We're totally out of time. We're totally out of time. Thank you very much, Reverend Hall and Apostle Wiley for joining us this morning. Have a blessed day to you both.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information on how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Miss Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I am Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and watchful as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with Roshane Douglas.
Thank you, Dr. Toussaint. Have a wonderful day and the rest of the week off. All right, we'll talk very soon. You're tuned to Love 101 FM, the family station.